Today we're talking about the Servette game that happened on Thursday. Andrew, bit of a nothing game, really. I mean, I know we got the result. We went through in the end. 3-2 on aggregate, if my math serves me correctly, which it doesn't normally. But yeah, bit of a nothing game, really. What were your thoughts on it?
Uh, yeah, I think the performance wasn't great. I mean, bear in mind that the one that we scored was from a pen. I mean, we scored two pens throughout
Yeah.
the whole tie. I mean, they were cast iron pens, but you take those out and you kind of go, we created one goal and they created two. Doesn't feel great against a team of the quality of Servette. So I think this is partially what I was worried about in terms of playing a very heavily rotated side. Is they're the ones that probably aren't grasping the system quite so well. Um, and they won't have had anywhere near as much of a chance to play with each other. A lot of the players are new players or players that feel practically new because they were injured for most of last season, um, which adds a level of complexity to it. So it is difficult to kind of feel that if we're going to go with this approach for the entirety of the Conference League, it does go like, will we win it? I think the longer we stay in it, the more chance we have of looking better in that competition and being good enough to beat the other teams if we stick with this kind of rotated side. But it does give me some worries about the earlier fixtures in the group, especially the away games.
I think
But
just on that point, I think the further we go along, he'll have to play the proper 11, the main 11.
I
Um,
suppose it depends what team we. I suppose it depends what teams we're playing against, right? Because if we're still playing teams like Noah towards the back end of the tournament, you kind of go, well, we should be better than this team.
we
There's not
should.
a lot of great teams in this tournament.
No, and nothing really stood out to me when I saw the group draw. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but when I saw that group that we were in, um, I wasn't really worried. There's only a couple of teams there that I actually think I recognised. Um,
Yeah,
but going back to what you were saying about the team, I mean, I remember looking at it before the game, and the first thing that came to my mind was, are we secure at the back? And the second thing was, where's the creativity really going to come from? I mean, I've got the team here. So it was Jorgensen in goal, Zazi, Tosin, and Badashil in defence. Fernandez, Vega, Madueke, Nkunku, Dewsbury Hall, Mudryk, and then Gee. And I just kind of felt it was missing something. And I hate to say it, it was obviously Cole Palmer. But I don't think he can. I don't think we can risk playing him every game, to be honest. And I don't think we should have to with the squad that we've got. But it really seemed like such a flat game from start to finish for us.
yeah. I mean, the issue that I have with that is you're looking at Dewsbury Hall's been brought in to play that sort of tennis role that gets a lot of goals and assists in Maresca's system in theory. I don't really think he was playing it. I think Nkunku was playing that role.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
And I don't think Nkunku is the most creative player in the world. I think he is better at making runs and sort of feeding off a target man-ish striker
Agreed.
that he hasn't really had the opportunity to do. I think the best that he's looked is pre-season last season when he was playing with Jackson, and both of them played, and they seem to interlink quite well together. I think both of them want to play with someone up top with them. Um, so I don't, and this is part of sort of my question marks over the transfer policy of I don't think we're buying players that work in the right system because we've bought João Felix that's very similar to Nkunku, and you kind of go, well, how does it fit? I get that João Felix has that little bit of magic in his feet that occasionally can unlock a defence. And you saw a little bit of that against Palace, but I feel like we're buying a lot of players that are similar, and a lot of the players just don't quite work or don't really fit.
Yeah, I agree. And we had this conversation before where we were discussing how long has the club known that they wanted to play this style of football. We'll call it the Pep style or the City style, because that's what Enzo does, because he likes it, learns it from Pep. Because I've said that for a while in terms of at what point do they know they wanted to play this system in this way? Because we've already bought a shit ton of players. And how many of these players can actually play that way? Looking at this team, I think Tosin has been brought in for that reason.
Yeah.
He come from the City Academy. I mean, obviously we'll go into more detail about players that we've brought in, for example, but just talking about that point in terms of the style and the squad that we had, I don't think Dizazi can play that way. I don't think Badiashile can play that way, which is why I was worried about the back. I think Jorgensen has got a lot of potential with his feet. Question marks are starting to loom over his goalkeeping abilities with regards to saving, I think, sometimes. But he has made a couple. He did make a few good saves actually in that game. You got
For the second goal, I think he just slipped. I think that you could see how like choppy the pitch was in that goal mouth, and I think that was largely he's lost his footing because the pitch was shy.
Exactly, but also at the same time, I'm not going to hold it against him because I don't think the defense was good enough in front of him. You know, a goalkeeper is always going to look worse if the defense in front of him is not doing their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, look at Pickford. You know, Pickford's actually got a really good record considering the team he's playing for. You know, not saying that he's the best goalkeeper in the world, but he's England #1 for a reason. And you know, imagine where they would be if they didn't have him in goal.
Yeah, it's felt like there's been an Everton Pickford and England Pickford for a long time, and that the reason is Everton's defence is fucking shite.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. You know, we then had Fernandez and Vega in the midfield. You know, I think Vega has been brought in for that reason. He looks like he's got good feet on him, to be fair, and he can play multiple positions. Fernandez, I know the jury's out for you on him. For me, I still think he's got great feet, and some of the balls he plays are brilliant. He does.
Hang on. You're saying that against Servette, we didn't have the creativity and we struggled with that. Is that he's supposed to be playing the killer balls, isn't he? That's what his game is, right?
No, I agree. But at the same time, I personally don't think there was actually a lot of good movement in that game from other players. And I don't think he then had enough options previously, like he did against Wolves and the Palace game, which we'll come to later on. I thought the movement was better in those games, and therefore it gives him better options. And also in both those games, you also have Cole Palmer, so you've got two what I would call playmakers on the ball. Madueke, Nkunku. I've never been sure about Dewsbury Hall, but obviously he's been brought in by Enzo. That's got to be an Enzo signing at the end of the day. I know everyone says it's coming from the board, but that has to be an Enzo signing. And then you got Mudryk, who didn't do anything. Let's face it, I was very disappointed with him in that game.
A pen.
He did win a pen, yes, but I like the bloke. I think he's got bags of potential, but you have to admit he did not show enough in that game against a team against this sort of team. You're going, come on, mate, like show us something, and he really didn't.
But I think that's one where the pitch does make a difference. For someone like Mudryk, the pitch will make a big difference because when you rely on pace, if the ball's bobbling all over the place, it does make life a little bit more difficult. I was impressed with him when he came on against Crystal Palace.
I was going to say that is my caveat. I thought that was a different Mudryk, to be fair. And then you got Mark, which got Mark. I can't keep saying his name wrong. Up top, who obviously missed a fair few opportunities in the first game. But I don't really think it's fair to be putting him in the firing line yet. He's only 18 years old and he's still getting used to the league. Granted, this was a European game.
He didn't get a sniff either, really.
No, and like you said, I think off air, if we're doing lots of floaty balls and not playing, balls along the ground because the pitch, that is going to affect the front three.
Yeah.
Massively. So, yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, the result, but at the end of the day, we've gone through. That's what the aim of the 2 legs was. And I think you're right. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with what team we play as we go along. But I do have some question marks over the defense and then being able to play out from the back, if I'm brutally honest, against anybody at the moment. Because I think if any manager was worth his salt, saw that defense lining up or thought they would be playing, put them under pressure.
Well, yeah, and again, so one thing I think Badiashile actually isn't bad at is splitting the lines of the pass. I think he can play a decent pass. He just needs too much time that he doesn't always get. So he can look weak on the ball. I think defensively, I think with centre backs, it's very rare that they kind of just gel immediately. I think they need some time to work each other out, work out where they want to be. And I think Fofana and Colwill have kind of got there a little bit quicker on the basis of they are slightly different defenders, and they're kind of a pairing that generally seems to work in terms of you've got one that is more of a positional defender, good at tackling, good at passing, and you've got one that's quick, a little bit wily, aggressive. That combination just seems to kind of work in football, or historically has worked, where they're different and they allow each other to play to their strengths.
Oh, 100%. There's enough examples of that. You're absolutely right, yeah.
Whereas I don't think Badiashile and Tosin I think they're relatively similar defenders, and neither of them can make up for the other one's mistake. So I don't think that's a partnership that is going to go particularly well. That'll always be a patch up. And I think that's probably also why Tosin is unlikely to get the nod over Fofana, because I think he is also quite similar to Colwill in the way that they want to defend and the way that they naturally play. Whereas I think the difference of Fofana in terms of how he plays just gels better in general. I think they just make up for each other's mistakes, and it kind of just works. They get it.
No, I agree. I think we've always said a fully fit Fofana gets straight into the first team. At the end of the day, the problem we've had for the last 2 seasons is he's been out. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, the job was done. Yeah, the pitch wasn't great. Probably has made a big difference in that. And I think it's a watch this space moment really with the Europa Conference League.
Yeah, I do think he'll stick with what he's been doing for most of the games. If we play someone and we desperately need points to get through the group, he'll probably change it. But I think the first few games he'll stick with sort of what he's been doing. I would like to see. Well, the problem is now Mark Guiu's not gone out on loan. He needs some minutes in certain instances, but I do want to see Nkunku given a chance up front. And I think Europa Conference League is probably the best option of doing that. And I'm sure we'll experiment. We've got so many bloody players now, especially in that front, like the front 4 kind of roles.
Yep.
So I'm sure there'll be a fair amount of experimentation, which probably will cause more problems in the start, and hopefully we'll find something that clicks. But yeah, we'll see.
Thank you all for watching this episode of the Overland Sea podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, follow, hit that notification button, and stay tuned for more.